G'day everyone, and welcome to another Toon Under podcast. Toon Under podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's biggest and best Newcastle United podcast. Tonight, I'm joined by the boys from Bris Vegas, Mark and Lee. How are we today?
Yeah, doing really well. Bit hyper on some pain medication tonight, so it should be an interesting show. So we'll try and keep things on track, shall we?
Yeah,
Lee,
we'll let
how
you
are
know
you,
when the
mate?
drill starts coming out the corner of your mouth, mate. Don't worry about it. I'm all right, thanks, mate. Yeah, I've had one of those weeks where, like you do a bit of work and then you think to yourself, "Oh, it must be Friday by now," and you look at the calendar and it's Wednesday, and you're thinking, "What the hell?"
Yeah,
So you put your head down,
normally
you do a bit more work, you look up again, and it's still Wednesday. I've had like one of those kind of weeks, you know. But truth be told, I've enjoyed that game last weekend. I've been dining out on that one pretty much all week. It's been sensational.
Yeah, it's good because you can just keep topping up on all the new little bits of content that gets posted up on it each day, and different angles and match cams and interviews, and you can just sort of drip feed your way through the week. But I'm like you, but sometimes it's still Tuesday when I look at and I think it's Thursday or Friday, and then the week's drag. All right, we'll just do a bit of housekeeping first. If you like what we're doing, if you're on YouTube, if you could give us a like, that's fantastic. It really helps us sort of get ourselves out there more in the YouTube universe. If you're listening to this, if you want to give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider, that really, really helps us as well. And just recently, well, last week, I think it was, Lee, we've started up our own YouTube membership. It's just $1. It's $1.49 a month. If you're an Australian, it's only 85 pence. So that's probably half a cup of coffee over there now, Lee. Something with the exchange rate, I haven't checked that out. But if you want to jump on YouTube, you can join up there. Get your great perks. We've got some more things in the works behind the scenes that we're sort of working on that will start hopefully drip feeding out in the next couple of weeks as well. So yeah, I encourage you, if you like what we're doing, it really helps us sort of keep our costs, and so it's pretty expensive to do this sort of stuff. I don't think anyone really realized how much it was going to cost until we all done it. So yeah, if you like what you do, if you like what we do, yeah, we'd love you to sign up and be a part of our journey. We had 6 new people sign up over the weekend. Really pumped with that. Mark, do you want to give him a shout out?
Yeah. So obviously, thank you very much for everyone who has joined up. It's a big thing for us. I think it's like a bit new for us as well, but we really appreciate those that are kind of chipping in a little bit to the cost to keep things running and hopefully make us to the point where we can kind of expand a little bit and sort of maybe bring you a little bit of extra something now and again. So big shout out to Ken Possel, Luke McKean, Ben Olsthorn, Eric Shun, Dexter Cousins, and Ian Eckert, and I hope I pronounced everyone's names correctly there. I noticed how they've dobbed me in to do the name pronunciation for today.
I can't do that,
while I'm struggling,
Yeah.
while I'm struggling to speak. But yeah, no, absolutely, big shout out to all those people that have sort of joined up. It makes a big difference, and it's really flattering that people value the show that much. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, probably the biggest shout out to Eric Shun, Lee.
Oh yeah. Everyone likes a good Ericsson.
Yeah. All right. So this Sunday or Monday morning, I think for us, isn't it? It's 2:00 UK time kickoff.
Really early.
So that's a 1:00 in the morning for me, and I guess it's be midnight for you two as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 662-mile round trip all the way down to Southampton, which is 1,065 Ks for the Australian people listening, round trip. So good luck to everyone, and I hope you get down there safe. Lee, do you ever make that trip when you lived over in the UK?
Before, yeah, I've been down there in the car. It was a pain in the ass. I've been to the same areas as well. That was the same trip, actually. No, it wasn't. It was a different trip. But yeah, I've been to the same areas. I've been all the way down there. It's a long journey, but it's all the way down the motorway, so it's not that bad.
How long does it take in the car?
5 or 6 hours. I think the trains. Is there some issue with the trains and some issue with the airplanes as well?
There was meant to be a strike or something, but I think it's been called off.
What about for the trains or the planes?
I think it was a plane. I think it was a plane strike or something. But as far as I know, that's all been cancelled, so it should all be good. Fingers crossed. I'm sure someone can write in the comments and let us know if they're stranded.
So I was looking through some stuff. The last 10 meetings that we've played Southampton, we've won 6 of them. There's been 3 draws. Southampton have only won once. So that sort of bodes well, hopefully. And our last 5 at St Mary's, we've won 2. There's been 2 draws and they've only won once as well. So that's
it's strange,
pretty good. Yeah.
It's strange. I've got that feeling that they're kind of a bogey team, but the recent results haven't been all that bad for us, really.
No.
I think historically they were an awful away trip, and we never seem to do very well. There's that whole stigma around our away form for a while there, and I think generally speaking we couldn't win for love nor money up in London. And I think it's just like, well, obviously it's traveling a bit further, so surely we can't win there either. But I'm actually genuinely surprised that we've got that good a record, to be honest.
Yeah, I was sort of the same. But then I thought there was the Bruno stud kick, karate, fly kick winner last year. And yeah, I don't know what it was, but it was great. Right in front of the away end too, which probably, I don't know. I just think when you score down the away end and you win, it just gives it that little extra little cherry on top, I reckon. Like as good as even Miggy's goal against Tottenham, and like imagine how good that would have been if he was running towards the away fans in the corner then. Like it just would have been even better. Like it was great and it would have been even better than what it was. But yeah, just going back to Southampton, they've had a bit of a weird year, I think. I think they've sort of been thereabouts. They've had a couple of decent results, but they're 17th. Well, I didn't think they were that low until I looked at the table. So, like Lee, have you were you a bit surprised when you seen how low they were?
No, not really, because they've had a few key injuries. I've been reading up a little bit on this since last game, but they've had a few key injuries in midfield and defence, and Cheltenham's can't score to save his life. And Hasselfart has been sort of chopping and changing the formation quite a lot as well, trying to find something that works. I think he's tried 4 or 5 different formations, I read somewhere. So it's kind of an unsettled formation in general. And then you've got the injuries on top. I mean, one's probably necessitated the other. But I haven't really... It was a couple of seasons ago, wasn't it, where they were kind of flying really high, like almost like the same as Newcastle this season. And you kind of thought, well, that's Southampton kind of mixing it up with big boys. And then they kind of just died off a bit. And I think they've always, to me, they've always felt like a mid-ish, kind of below mid-ish level in the table team. But they do have that ability to get up some really good results as well. So, but it doesn't really surprise me that they're down there. Villa's down there doesn't surprise me. Everton are kind of around that area. The teams that should probably be doing better, frankly, at least Everton and Villa and Southampton. We'll talk about this soon, I'm sure, but they're going to have some injuries coming back to the team, some players coming back from injury, and that might start moving them up the table a little bit,
Yeah, I'll bring the table up now where we can have a look at it.
4th.
It's still weird. So even if we do happen to lose this game and Chelsea win, they still won't get above us, which is crazy. Like, who would have thought
that insane goal difference? We got a better goal difference points at this time last season.
But they've been really inconsistent with their sort of form as well. Maybe it goes back to what you said, Lee, about changing their formations, and they just can't get that continuity in their lineups and in the way they play, which is actually transferred into their results and stuff like that. Mark, have you seen the year?
Look, Southampton have always been that sort of side where they have like a bit of a yo-yo sort of situation where they always seem to kind of like so first off, they have a very good setup there. Obviously, they always seem to produce a lot of good talent at the club. It's interesting because they'll start pushing up the table on one season because they'll have a lot of really good players, or they'll have like a good scouting network, and they get those players in, but they always end up selling them. So they sell them on for massive profit, yes, but then they'll drop back to earth. Obviously, the manager hasn't got anything to complain about us with game postponements until after transfer windows this season. So, he's got to come up with some new excuses if we do manage to win. But
you use the World Cup.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but look, I mean, they are that sort of club that if they have a very good year, they're kind of like top half. If they have a bad year, they're bottom half. Seem to swing between the two. As I said, I'm surprised that they are down there, but when you think about it, they haven't really been sort of like shining in games this season. They're obviously their record's not great at the moment. They have conceded a lot of goals, and they're not scoring any goals. So they're very reliant on set pieces and things like that typically. So if they're not getting those sorts of plays, then it's not surprising that they're struggling to get points on the board. But hopefully we can make the most of our form and sort of get in their face and try and unsettle them early.
Yeah, well, it's actually weird. Like looking at their goals, I mean, they've only scored 11 goals for the season, and Leicester are a spot below them, and they've scored 10 more goals than them. Like it's crazy. So I've had a good stat sent in by one of our listeners, Craig. So Craig, thanks for this. He's also a watcher and a participant as well. So the last time, or every time that Newcastle's been on 24 points after 13 games, they've actually finished in the top 6. So fingers crossed that this year doesn't break the streak, I suppose, if you want to call it that. But
how many times has that actually happened, though?
It's happened 5 times.
What's the sample size here? Well, 5's not too bad, yeah. Not too bad, but it's not exactly a huge sample size, is it really?
So yeah,
that's because we probably haven't had this good a start for a while.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. But most of those things probably happened in the late 90s and kind of early 2000s.
Yeah, I think it was like 94, 95, 95, 96. That's probably the 01, 02. I think the last one was the Pardew Renaissance year.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully they can continue the form. But like I said on one of the last week, maybe they're there on merit. We're not sort of tin-arsing our way to results like we have in the past. We've actually, all our metrics and all the stats sort of back up that we should be where we are. So I might just go into Southampton's lineup now. I think that's their lineup from their last game. Lee, what did you sort of find when you were trawling around the Southampton sort of depths on the internet?
Yeah, well, there's a guy in the midfield, what's his name? Maitland-Niles. He came on as a sub, I think, in the last game and completely changed how they were playing. I mean, if you happen to catch that game last week, they were kind of all right-ish in the first half without really doing much. But then second half were quite dominant. And the change, as I understand things, was because Maitland-Niles came in to the midfield. And I was reading a few people on the forums saying that that's largely, they think, because Ward-Prowse needs that person behind him to kind of mop up and protect the back four when he's marauding forward, trying to get one of the sensational goals that he can score. So there's a good chance. I mean, this is the team from last week, but there's a good chance there'll be a few changes here. Maitland-Niles is probably one of the main ones that might come into the midfield. The problem that we've got, and we'll come on to soon, is that obviously one of our main midfielders, he's been down the wing, but he won't be playing. So I think we might. It'll be interesting to see how that lines up in the middle and how who comes out on top, because we tend to like to dominate the midfield as much as possible and spread it to the wings or go through the middle. We've been doing a really good job of that, but I think we might just suffer a little bit this weekend. Mind you, I said the same last weekend and we absolutely nailed them second half. So who bloody knows, I think Armstrong might have a bit of a niggle, so there's a suspicion that he may not start. It's obviously nothing's confirmed at this point, but he might not start. Perraud, if that's how you pronounce it, he's been good for the last few games, although he wasn't that good in the last one. He I think he's more of a defender than midfielder. I don't think he's a wing back. I think he's more of a fullback. So yeah, you can expect him probably to play. And the right back has been a bit of an issue apparently. Lianco there, he was basically responsible for their goal against Crystal Palace. I'm not sure if he's a right back or a centre back, but yeah, he might be able to get to be getting that if we can run at him, which will be down the left side. So who knows? Maybe ASM players, and maybe you can take him on and see if you can get past him. Belakocha might be returned as well. Apparently, he's put off a shoulder surgery. The suspicion being that he's going to try and make the World Cup. But then, so does he risk coming back into this team before the World Cup and risk getting another injury, or does he sort of stay in the background, try and build up his fitness, and then bugger off to the World Cup and live life? You know, who knows? But there's definitely some chances of changes in this, in what we're looking at on screen here. I'll just read out for anybody who might be listening. So it's Bazuna at the back in goal. Then why am I reading these out? Salusi.
No, I was going to ask you, but you've offered, so that's even better.
Kaleta Lianco, Perud or Proud, Armstrong, Diallo, Ward-Prowse, Elinusi, Adams, and Aribo. Excuse me. So that was the team last week, but yeah, as I've said, there's a good, strong suspicion that there'll be some significant changes to that lineup.
Mark, is there anyone in there who sort of concerns you, or you're worried about, or need to keep in check?
I think it's probably, to be honest, it's probably more the formation. I think if they can crowd the midfield out, then it might make for a scrappy game, kind of like Villa did in the first half last weekend. Armstrong, if he's out, obviously he's like an ex-player, so he's going to be keen, always keen to sort of stick one in the back of the net when you're playing against your old clubs, especially when you've been released. Didn't set the sights on fire here. It was a bit of a shame. Always had like a big potential there. Ward-Prowse is always a danger. Anytime that free kick's given just outside the box, you kind of fancy him to bury it now and again. So, look, I mean, I think we've got to be disciplined. I think we've got to be sort of keeping an eye on the midfield runners and stuff like that. As Lee said, look, if Ward-Prowse is getting that freedom to run forward, he's going to be dangerous. So we've got to be able to cover that. I fancy our chances given our defensive record at the moment, and most of our players are more than willing to track back. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything there that's super stressful. I think Southampton are definitely capable of a good performance. A lot of that's going to come down to, how we match up against them. And if they do play that kind of wing back role, I think that could actually work in our favor. If you stick, if Maxi comes back in and you've got Miggy on fire on the other wing, if their wing backs push up and we can deal with them with our left and right backs ourselves, then it frees up we've got two very good centre halves at playing the ball out. Botman's capable of some pretty spectacular crossfield passes. You've got Bruno in there. If Shelvey comes back in, and we'll talk about that in a minute, Shelvey's capable of like that, I hesitate to say, but the quarterback role. And so, he's going to be looking to sort of play those balls out wide to players to run onto. And with Miggy and ASM, you've got two players that are going to burn past players for pace. And the one thing that we've kind of suffered from in the past is, they had the pace to get into those positions, but they didn't really do anything with it. Miggy's, he's proving that he can at the moment. So, let's hope that run continues.
Yeah, I think even ASM was too before he got injured. I think there was definitely signs that, not that he turned the corner, but he was starting to understand his role more and when he needed to give it off. And sometimes I even think he was giving it off when he should have run. Like he was actually going too far the other way rather than sort of just give it off and go. And then, but hopefully he can get a good couple of weeks of training in. And maybe if he doesn't start this game, I've got a feeling you'll probably start the League Cup game against Palace. And he might get an hour. Maybe John Joe would probably get an hour as well as guys like Wood and Fraser and Anderson to probably get a run out if he's fit. Carrius might even make his debut. Like there's plenty of
good call.
Plenty of players there, that I think can sort of get that run out during the week, and then maybe Big Joe gets 60, 70 minutes as well because he's missing this game. But then, how do you do that? Because we've got Chelsea on the Saturday, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see what. But that's next week's problem. We won't dive sort of too much into that now. I'll just get up.
I'll just mention again about Ward-Prowse. They've scored 11 goals, but he's only got one of them this season. So he's not hitting anywhere near the heights that he would normally get in a normal season. He normally gets them in. He's only got one goal, so he's really struggling to make an impact at the minute. From the subs bench as well, let's not forget our mate Walcott. He does have that tendency to like to come on and score against us. Yeah, he likes to come on and score against us. I don't think he did last time, but he's definitely one of those kind of players who knows how to score against Newcastle. I'm pretty sure he's there.
Surely Zimmer frame's got to give out at some point.
Hopefully it's raining.
How old is he now? How old is Walcott now? He must be getting on a bit now.
Yeah, he's no spring chicken, but yeah. So the other thing I'll mention about them as well is that when they played Arsenal, it was a 1-1 draw.
He's 33.
33, yeah.
I suppose he did start very early, so.
They played two wing backs against Arsenal apparently, but then they sort of sat deep and tried to hit on the break, but it didn't really work. And they managed not to lose it, but if they sit deep against us and try and hit us, then we might have a good chance of getting around them. But we're not that good at breaking down teams, so it depends on what formation Hasselhoff goes with. He's tried just about everyone so far, and then also it comes down to what team he goes with as well.
Yeah, I think we've just got to be really careful with Ward-Prowse too, that fouling around the box and stuff like that. We've got to be really careful with what we do and don't dive in recklessly, I guess, and give him that opportunity and him to score, he can get his tail up then. And, look, the crowd really lifts for free kick goals as well. So get the crowd in and hopefully we'll get on the front foot and get the first goal. And then we normally pretty after we score the first. But
this is their last home game before the World Cup, so they'll probably want to go out with a bang. They'll not want to leave home for the World Cup with a defeat or a draw.
Yeah, for sure. Just looking at our team now, Lee, you were charged with what you predicted Eddie will make for this weekend. You've gone with Murphy in for Big Joe. What was your reasoning for that?
Well, it's a natural. Big Joe down left is a bit of a. I know he played down left before, but you normally kind of associate Big Joe with somewhere in the middle. So the fact that he's out there left, which I think was an accommodation thing, so that you can play Bruno and Willock and whoever else, Longstaff, in the same team, it's just an obvious change, really. You take off someone on the left, you put someone else who plays on the left. And Murphy, he's might not be the best, might not be everyone's cup of tea, but he does the running. And one of these bloody days, he'll score a goal. It'll probably come off the post. It'll probably come off the post. But one of these days, he will score a goal, and then he's next on the conveyor belt of players to get improved by Eddie, isn't he? So he just needs that first goal to get going. I'll just read out these teams in anyway. So it's Pope at the back, Bobby. Then it's Byrne, Botman, Shaw, and Cripps. Murphy, Willock, Longley, Bruno, and Miggy, and Wilson up front. Yeah, so it still has the right kind of balance, doesn't it? You've got a left person on the left, you've got Miggy on the right. You've got your central midfielders in the middle, your striker up top, and your four defenders at the back. So the only slightly imbalanced bit is still, I think, Byrne at left back. It's still weird to see him there, and it's even stranger to see him doing all right. I know he's played there in the past, but he's more of a central defender, isn't he? And, but it seems to be working. So Eddie Howe doesn't like to change teams that are working, and this team is absolutely working, so that's what I've gone with.
Yeah, I actually thought Murphy's little cameo at the end of last week's game, he was really, really good. Is that how you sort of seen it too, Mark?
I've been pleasantly surprised by Murphy in recent games. I think, we've all maybe not berated him, but he, as Lee said, he's not everyone's cup of tea. He sort of he runs a lot. He does the sort of the hard graft. So you can't really fault him for that. He always puts 100% effort in, but he just never really seems to have that end product. And even when he does get to the point where he's like having a shot on goal, it's always hitting the woodwork. So, at some point he's going to have to score. As Lee said, he's probably, it's guaranteed that it's going to come off the woodwork. But, look, it's hard if Alan St-Maximin is fully fit, not to bring him in when there's an opportunity. It's that situation where is his ego going to be damaged if he doesn't get on when it's not a settled team. So there's one thing where Joelinton was playing, it's an unchanged team because we won, and he doesn't get to come on because he's got to bide his time, and then we make a change and it's still not him. And that's my worry, is like managing his ego and his sort of temperamental side, I think you would say. Look, I've been absolutely blown away by Big Dan Burn at left back. I think he's sort of surpassed all expectations in that position. I think having Botman next to him, though, is just so good for him, because Botman is a rock at the back. He's so good, comfortable with the ball at his feet. He's just so easy in possession. He reads the game so well. So I think anything that when Dan Burn does get beaten for pace, and he does, Botman's there covering for him. You've got Willock chasing back, Longstaff chasing back. So there is that cover there. The only downside with Burn is you don't have that attacking threat that you would get with someone like Matty Targett. Matty Targett's going to give that extra delivery into the box. He's going to bomb up. He's going to push on past the whoever's playing on the left wing. But let's be honest here at the moment, all of our attacking threat at the moment is going down that right-hand side. Trippier's been absolutely fantastic. Miggy's been on fire. They've been combining well with Bruno. Longstaff's been doing his bit. I've always said, like, Longstaff seems to be this player that he needs to have a very defined role, and he clearly has it under Eddie Howe. And he can just go out there and just do what he needs to do, and he knows what he needs to do. He doesn't have to think about it, because I think as soon as he has to engage the brain a bit, that's usually where it goes pear-shaped, and he can't think on his feet quick enough, and he gets caught in possession. But if he can just sort of put the effort in, he's an instrumental part of that midfield at the moment. It's hard to see who we drop to bring the likes of Shelby and St-Maximin's got to come back into that lineup as well. So look, I'm happy if that's our starting 11. I would possibly prefer to get Maxi back in there other than Murphy, and leave Murphy as this pacey winger to bring off the bench to run at tired defenders. Give Maxi sort of 60 minutes and then get some fresh legs on. But either way, I'm literally at the point where whatever Eddie Howe decides to do, I'm good with, because it seems to be working.
What do you reckon? Do you reckon ASM's actually fit and ready to come on? Because he only played wasn't very much at all against.
No, it was mid-80s. I reckon he come on.
Yeah, and I don't remember him doing anything of particular note. Now, obviously, he's just coming back from injury, and obviously the game's kind of over, and the team's been changed a lot, so the dynamics are a little bit different. I don't know if that is enough of a cameo to suggest starting them. Now, and these are all professional players, obviously, and the staff will know what the crack is, but. I don't know.
He's been back fit for a while, though. It's not like he's just come back from injury and that was his first game. He's been on the bench for 2 games, hasn't he? So he's had that little bit of like a couple of weeks working, and we've seen what Eddie Howe could do in terms of fitness levels after the Bruce fiasco. So a couple of weeks, maybe, as you said, like, look, it's up to the coaching staff. They're going to know what the players' fitness levels are. I think if he's fit, I reckon he probably should start. If they don't think he can see out 60 minutes, then leave him on the bench, bring him on as an impact sub if we need him.
It's just the match sharpness and the match fitness that I'm worried about as much as anything else. Like you don't get that after 5 minutes against Villa. You need to have a consistent amount of time. You've got to get it into your legs. You've got to sharpen up your brain. And Murphy is ready to go, whereas ASM, I feel is good. It still needs more time to spin up and get to that point. So I think it's a risk to start ASM personally.
Yeah,
but
no,
that
that's
doesn't
a
mean
fair comment.
that doesn't mean he can't come on later in the game when Murphy inevitably runs out of steam, and he does run out of steam, Murphy. Then bring in ASM maybe and see how we go from that point.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I think they might give him 15, 20 minutes on the weekend with an eye to give him an hour, maybe 70 minutes in the League Cup game, just not a free hit, but just a chance without the pressures of the league to get him a run around and stuff like that. So that sort of leads me into my next sort of question for you both. I think most fans would probably say that John Joe Shelby, Alan St. Maximum, and Alexander Isak are in our best 11, but how do they get into this team now? They're all either injured, just coming back from injury. If we've got everyone fully fit, how do they get back into this team? Mark, I'll let you go first here.
Look, I think we've been proven where the last few games where we've been up against some of the better teams, we as fans have always said, "Oh, this is kind of like a free hit. Let's just sort of go out there and see if we can keep it tight, whatever. Maybe sort of make some changes to the squad." And we've pretty much got to the point where we all know Eddie Howe does not think like that. There is no such thing as a free hit. There's no easy games. He wants to win every single game that he goes out there and puts a team out for. He prepares every single team to win that game. And, I think it's going to be difficult for us to get back in unless somebody drops form or gets injured. And I think it's one of those situations where I'm happy for that because it means that players are working hard to keep their positions. They're not getting dropped as soon as someone comes back fit. So the motivation's there for every single player to play their socks off, and they know that if they play well enough, they're going to keep their position. And it's like it's a fair, open field for everyone. I don't want to see players that are like kind of like an automatic pick as soon as they're back fit without having dropping someone who is in form. I mean, you can't drop say Isak comes back, who are you dropping for him? You can't drop Callum Wilson the way he's playing. You can't drop Miggy. Maybe you could play him on the left, but then where do you fit Maxi in? So it's a really nice problem to have though. It's like it's for so long we haven't had that squad depth, and we're starting to kind of get that because all the players that are probably backup players are now playing really well, and maybe they lack a little bit of that extra quality that some of these other players do, but you cannot fault work rate and you cannot fault the tactics of the team that Eddie Howe's putting out there. So look, I think it's a case of you get them, you bring them in off the bench, you give them enough time on the pitch, and if they come on and end up playing better than whoever they've replaced, then they can start the next game. But I don't see an easy way where you can just sort of automatically bring those players back in.
Lee?
Yeah, that's right. It's a meritocracy, isn't it? I mean, you get in there on the basis of you performing well, and then you keep that shirt until you stuff it up or you get injured. I think it depends which team we're talking about. Obviously, the cups are an opportunity for these guys to get out there and to play games. But if we're talking about the Premier League, it's pretty much either dead man's shoes where someone gets injured and you need someone to come in, or potentially a change of formation. I mean, Eddie Howe is obviously fairly rigid with a 4-3-3 at least so far. But I mean, if for some reason he wanted to change it to a 3-5-2 or 4-4-2, God help us, then there's an opportunity there to have two strikers up top. Why we do that, I don't know. But the point is, there could be an opportunity there through formation where maybe you can make an argument for having Wilson and Isak, big dog, at the same time. But the question is still, who do you drop though? And you're going to be pretty unlucky the way the team is right now to get dropped out of this team. So it's an interesting thing. It is wonderful to have squad depth, like Mark says. That's such a rarity in this team for the last God knows how long. It's always been absolute dross on the bench, total shit. But like if you put ASM, Isak, and Shelby on the bench, that's already 200 times better than what it used to be. You know, it's already like a really decent bench. Then you've got Anderson and you've got Target sitting there who's not even getting a game. You know, and then Dimmy's mate Lascelles. And Lascelles is a case in point. You know, he was injured for a while, and last season he got back to fitness and he came straight back in, and I wasn't too pleased about that. I forget who got dropped as a result, but this season we've seen that even though he's the club captain still, which question, he doesn't play very much at all. He came on against Villa, but it was in the closing stages. And the other thing is, why the hell did Trippier give him the captain's armband? I bloody hate that. I absolutely hate that.
You're the only one I know. You're the only one I know that's cracked the shits about that.
He managed the entire, you know, he's captained the whole game to fantastic results. And then bloody Lascelles, who's done nothing this season for one reason or another, comes on and gets the captain's armband and starts telling people what to do. He was going to look around at Lascelles and go, "Oh yeah, fair enough."
Lascelles is captain though. Lascelles is the club captain, and I think it's a sign of respect from Trippier to acknowledge that fact. And I don't think that Trippier giving the captain's armband over lessens his impact on what he will tell players to do or the respect that other players will have for Trippier. I think it was very much like a token of, well, you're the club captain, here you go, I respect that, and I'm still going to go and shout at people and organize people and tell everyone what to do and still go out there and perform. So I don't think it's a harsh thing that he's given him the captain's armband when he is technically the club captain. I actually think it was probably a nice little gesture from Trippier that he wasn't sort of, well, I've got it, so I'm not going to give it up because I should be captain anyway. I think that probably would have been worse because then you're effectively not respecting the fact that someone is the club captain.
I think that's fair enough. Yeah, and also I would say that the Lascelles is still captain almost certainly because Eddie Howe didn't want to rock the boat and potentially lose a defender that he might need to rely on later in the season. So, you know, he's
meant to be very good in the dressing room, though. He's meant to be very, very good off the pitch in terms of in the dressing room. He will talk to people. He will, like, you know, G people up. He will sort of get people ready for the game. He will bollock people if they step out of line or they're not performing. You know, I don't have a problem with him being club captain still. Obviously, it's working. And it's a case of anyone else that we've got. We should have multiple leaders. You know, we're talking about Trippier here, but, you know, Bruno could easily be captain of that side as well. Callum Wilson, they all lead by example on the pitch. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Well, I reckon Wilson's been captain a couple of times. I reckon Shelby was captain a couple of times as well. Yeah. So, I think Botman's got captain written all over him as well. So there's plenty of good leadership there, which is probably part of the reason why we've started the way we have. Just quickly, I want to touch on the World Cup, just leading on to how you think we could play in our lineups and stuff like that. Like, obviously, this is a never before happened thing where we have a World Cup in the middle of a season, which is ridiculous, and we don't need to get into that. But do you think they'll sort of treat this as a little pre-season, and then how you train over this month, I guess, or however long we stop for? Eddie will pick his best 11 for that first game based on what you've done sort of the last month that you haven't played. Like, obviously, I think Bruno, Trippier and Pope, they'll play when they come back, which is fine. But for everyone else who isn't going, I think Fabian Schär, I think he might be going as well. Yep. I'm pretty sure that they're in the World Cup. So they're nailed on starters anyway. But do you think this is a chance for someone like Shelby or ASM to really push their case in this month that we're not going to play? Lee?
I think probably the club will be mostly just concerned with keeping fitness levels up for everybody who hasn't got up to the World Cup. I bloody hate this World Cup. I think it's
the worst.
It would have been fine if we were playing absolutely shit this season. Like, I'm thinking, oh, please, World Cup.
Like every other year.
Please come along and, you know, extend yourself by anher 2 or 3 months because this has been a shocking season. But this season,
can we get that 40-team World Cup this year?
The momentum that we've built up is really, really important, and it's obviously going to face a risk of fizzling out because of a change of scenario with the World Cup and everyone going away, and obviously the risk of people getting injured. A big dog got injured the moment he went off to Sweden. It can happen with any of these other players. Everyone keeps pining for our players to go across and get recognised in the World Cup. And I understand why, but club before country, man. It's like they just run the risk of getting injured, and we only need to have 1 or 2 injuries to some of the key players, and we might start to struggle a little bit, like every other team. So I think the break, as far as training's concerned, I think mostly it'll be just keeping energy levels up, keeping the mind sharp, keeping the match fitness as best as they can. Obviously going to be playing not Premier League teams over in Saudi Arabia. Is it Saudi Arabia going to?
Yeah.
So they're going to have a camp over there, aren't they? So yeah, they'll obviously have to have other people playing because the rest of them are going to be away on World Cup duty. So there's definitely going to be that aspect of needing to get other people in, and it's a great opportunity to get their fitness levels higher than what they might be right now. But I think in general they'll try and keep it to a consistent team so that when the World Cup finishes and we get back into it in December, everyone's basically ready to hit the ground going again. You know, I can't see the value in changing formations and trying different things out unless he expects to use them in the games. And if half his team are away on the World Cup, then is there really that much value in doing that? So I suspect it'll just be a case of keeping everybody ticking over.
Yeah, Mark, what do you think? I looked at it as a glass half full, where someone like an Isak can potentially get a month of uninterrupted training with his teammates. Being a new player, he's only played two games really, the Liverpool game, and then was it the Palace one at home he played after that, and then went away.
Yep.
So he hasn't really had that sort of block of training with the team, and they get used to him and the runs he makes and the positions he takes up, and he's getting used to them as well. With this sort of month off, with him coming back to fitness as well, could be actually really beneficial for him, sort of integrating himself back into the team again.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, best case scenario is all of our international players go away. They come back fit. We end up with a rested squad with a little bit of time off. That then, you know, we play a high tempo game, and if we can get some of the players, you know, a little mini break and then still keep their fitness up, but let them recharge mentally, I think more than anything, it gives them a chance to kind of push on again once they get back in sort of full swing with the Premier League. I would like to think that Eddie Howe will be working with some of the fringe players to see if we can actually start to develop some of those. You know, we're talking about Murphy, and is he the next one to get howled? And, you know, but, you know, it gives the likes of Anderson, it gives the likes of some of the academy products a chance to come in and train with the first team as well. And hopefully they start to develop through as well. So, you know, look, I mean, I think in terms of who comes back and sort of, I don't see them making a massive change to the formation. I think it will very much depend on how far certain teams go in the World Cup and how many games they play and how many minutes they play as to if they get a little bit of a rest when they get back. You know, if Bruno plays every single game and every single minute of every single game for Brazil and they make it all the way to the final and they win the final, then they celebrate, and maybe he's a little bit burnt out and you don't want to kind of put him straight back into Premier League football, just because you don't want to risk that extra workload. Give him a couple of games off where he's on the bench to come off and still be around the squad. So it's going to be a little bit of play it by ear, I think. But, you know, I'm kind of with Keegan on this one, where I'm seeing it as a little bit of a positive, where we can have our training camp. We can give players a little bit more sort of one-on-one support. We can bed some of the players in, work on fitness for people like Isak, for Maxi, who have been out injured and maybe haven't trained as much as we would have liked. But yeah, I think it's a huge thing for Isak, especially because it gives him a chance to play with the players who maybe, you know, he needs to still work up that connection and that understanding with. But yeah, look, I mean, I don't want our players to go there because they might get injured. I don't want to stop playing football at the moment because we are absolutely on fire. And as Lee said, it's like the last thing you want right now is to have any sort of break in this because we're on a roll. And it'll be just like us to come back after the World Cup games and really struggle for form. And we lose like the first 2 games that we play and it'll be like, oh, here we go. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's just our sort of traumatic years under Ashley still haunting us, and things will. I mean, look, no doubt about it. Eddie Howe will have them training properly. He will have them focused. He will have everything in place to keep things going as much as he's actually capable of affecting that. I've no doubt about that. Yeah,
sort of part of me wants all our players to get knocked out in the group stage and get back and have a couple of weeks before they come. But unfortunately, my wallet wants Brazil to win. So I'm really torn on which one I want. I'm probably coming up at Christmas. I'm probably leaning towards hoping Brazil win it all, and I reckon my missus would be too for Christmas presents. I've just think when you said about getting howled, I just had this vision of, you know, in Borat when he goes to that crazy church and the guy puts his hand on his head and he's like, rah, 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 rah. Yeah, like I think like Eddie just walks around the dressing room and just finds someone and come with me, and him and Tyndall get in the room and lock the door, and he just puts his hand on his head and he's like, rah, 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 and then he sort of comes out and every player's sitting there like, is it going to be me next? Like it was Big Joe, it was Miggy, and
I always thought
he's like, Murphy's sitting there like, is he coming to me? Is he coming to me? And I just got this real weird cult vibe when you said you're getting howled. Anyway, moving on. Callum Wilson, he's been rock solid. When he's been on the park, he's been rock solid ever since he signed with us. I don't think he's regressed one bit ever. Like even in our shit teams, he was still a shining light in them teams. And I was just thinking about it the last couple of days. Where would he rank amongst sort of strikers that I've seen at Newcastle? I've probably got him probably third, I think. Like obviously I have Shearer 1, probably Ferdinand at 2, but I reckon he's third now. I think he's gone past like Cisse and Barr and Remy and Dwight Gale and things like that. Shola, yes. Nile Ranger, I think he's just got him covered as well. Lee, where would you have Callum Wilson in your strikers that you've seen in your lifetime?
I don't know, and that's a question you should have asked me before I came on so I could think about it. But like some of those names you've just mentioned there are absolute garbage, aren't they? Absolute garbage. I could be put on that list, for Christ's sake. It's shocking, absolutely shocking.
I didn't mention Marlon Hayward either. So, but well, anyway.
Oh, God, terrible, wasn't he? Yeah, I don't know, man. Third sounds about right, but my memory's not good enough to remember every striker that we've ever had. But those ones that you mentioned were absolute.
You're only going to remember the good ones.
And they had their moments, you know, didn't hang around long enough. Remy was on loan. He was good, but then he buggered off to Chelsea. They're all recent ones. Femi Martins? No. The perennial 22-year-old? No.
January 1st.
I don't know, man. Like, you know, are we talking about just the Premier League years here? Because obviously,
yeah.
Quite kinds of people there, and Jackie Milburn and all the rest of it. But
but just what you've said, not just the ones that you've seen. Not you can't go back.
Just what I've seen. Sorry, right? Yeah.
50 years. Yeah. Can't.
I'm pretty old, you know.
Sort of pass. Yeah, well, we can't pass judgments on things you haven't seen. So that's why I thought I'd just narrow it to what you've seen in your lifetime.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, my memory's not good enough to really pick out the ones I've seen over the years. I desperately want to say Peter Beasley, but he was obviously a midfielder. I love Peter Beasley. I'll just go with third because honestly, I can't think of it properly, mate. Unfortunately, Mark's got a better memory. Mark will tell you.
Look, I think we have actually had some rubbish strikers over the years. Daniel Cordoni.
Yes.
Christian Besaidis was a midfielder, wasn't he?
I think he was. Yeah.
Look, I mean, Carl Court.
Lua.
See, they've all got like their little moments of glory, but
Yeah.
they're not up there
Andy
as
Carroll?
like Andy.
Yeah.
Andy Carroll again. It's like, you know,
Could have been.
if you're canning, I mean, he was good. Did he play enough in the Premier League at that top level for us? I don't think he really did. You know, look, Shearer's number one, probably right with Ferdinand number two. I'm going to put Demba Ba number three just because I think for pure out and out striker, he was different class for us. You know, Papis Cisse, I loved watching him, but holy crap, it was like more a circus act than anything because he was just like, I still don't think he meant that goal against Chelsea from the wing.
Oh no,
it was
he
just a hit and
100%.
hope,
No,
and
he
it just
100%
looped
meant.
over. But anyway, yeah, I'll put Callum Wilson in at number 4 behind Demba Ba for me. I think he just looks. Are we talking how good they were as a striker, or are we talking about their impact for the team though? Because I think Callum Wilson is potentially probably as big an impact as any other striker at the club, bar Shearer. Purely and simply because everything is fed through him for so long. He's been our only main striker under Ashley at the end there. And I think even now, whenever he plays for us, we look a different team because we've got this focal point up front, and he does actually link up really well with the players around him. So, yeah, look, he's a phenomenal striker. There's definitely top 5 vibes there, but you know, there's talk and arguments for a few different positions and a few other strikers to be in amongst where he is. So, but yeah, top 5 definitely. I think he's absolutely magnificent for us. But hopefully Isak bypasses him once he gets back fit, and we're raving about him in a couple of seasons' time.
That would be good. That would be good. Well, that just about wraps it up. Oh, score. Hosselu, yes. Score predictions. Mark, you can go first.
I'll be honest, I haven't really thought about scores so much as I just want to watch the game again. The fact we're winning games is kind of almost like a bonus for the fact that we're just playing such nice football. There is a little bit of talk on Southampton fans that they don't react well to the high press, which we play. So I think we will win the game. It's hard to say because I keep going for like, say, a 2-0 or something like that. But, you know, we're scoring goals for fun at the moment, which is great to see. I mean, we all said this at the beginning of the season as well. Let's not forget. We were creating loads of chances, and we said some team's going to get an absolute hiding here.
Someone's going to cop it.
And it's been a couple of teams now. Yeah. So look, if we can capitalize on mistakes that we generate and we can keep it tight at the back, as long as the midfield doesn't bog everything down, and that's my one concern, but I'm going to go 2-0 for Newcastle. I think we are very solid defensively at the moment, and we do seem to have a couple of players in form up front. So let's see how we go.
Lee,
I'll go 3-1. 3-1 to the team. Scooby-Doo. I think with the likes of Ward-Prowse, if we give away a stupid free kick somewhere near the box like we do tend to do, you know, he's the guy who's going to step up and challenge Nick Pope to do the save, and he's very good at what he does. So, and he's only scored 1 this season, but you know, that just means he's ready for another one, isn't it? He's due another one.
Yeah, don't want to give him chances.
Do think no, and it does depend on where their minds are. You know, Villa played a lot better than I expected first half last weekend. They were. I assumed. I mean, I knew they would be kind of playing for the futures and everything. I said that in the preview, but. They, you know, they're still nonetheless a team that kind of has struggled to play together, and they got it right against Brentford the weekend before that. But the first half of last game, they did all right. They were competing. They weren't exactly challenging Nick Pope too much, but they were getting into some very promising positions. Bailey was doing all right down the wing, and so if Southampton played the same sort of style as Villa did, if they're not sitting back, if they do actually start to come out and maybe play around the midfield and get behind us down the wings, then they could pose us some problems. As with most of these games, you know, it comes down to who gets the first goal more than likely. If Saints get it, then they could just lock up shop and, you know, try and keep those 3 points, and we're not very good at breaking teams down. If they come out and come at us like Villa did, then there's every chance they might go and score goals just freely, but then we can get behind them too. You saw how many times Miggy ran behind Villa's defence in the second half. If we could do something like that this weekend against the Saints, he's going to have every chance to add to his goal tally. I think 3-1, but I could just as easily see this being a 0-0. Honestly, depends on how they're set up and depends where the minds are. Southampton. I think we'll miss Joelinton as well.
I'll put you down for a 3-1 then. I think we'll win. I think we'll win 2-1. I think our defense might just leak one in, but I think we'll be good enough to score 2 and get the win and keep our position in 4th. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up for another episode. Thanks everyone for watching, listening. Mark and Lee, thank you for your time, gentlemen. You got anything to add before we wrap this show up?
Are we doing watch along?
No, we're not doing a watch along. It's usually the 3 o'clock Saturday kickoffs that we do the watch alongs. Not this time around. Bloody 2 o'clock. Was it midnight Monday morning?
Yeah.
Stuff that, mate.
Yeah.
Stuff that the school night. No thanks. I'll just say, how wear the Toon.
All right. I'll quickly, like you said, if you like it, if you're still with us, give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Rate us on your podcast provider. And if you want to jump on as a member, all the links are on our YouTube. That'd be fantastic as well. We've got a really good interview coming up tomorrow night. We should be out within the next 48 hours with Roberto Rojas. He's a American Paraguayan reporter who's close with Miguel Almiron. So we'll have that. We'll record that tomorrow night, and yeah, that should be out in the next couple of days. So that'll be really interesting, and he'll give us a lot of really good insights. Yeah, a lot of really good insights with Miggy, how he come to sort of where he is at the moment, and yeah, really looking forward to that chat with Roberto. So yeah, everyone will give that a listen. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks a lot, gentlemen.
Cheers, Keegs.
Cheers.
We'll catch you around. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. Catch you later.